Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which OP gets the perfect chance for a little post-divorce revenge. After 14 years of marriage to a lying, cheating ex, OP finally got their freedom. When my ex learned to not ask me to do anything for him anymore. A bit of a backstory. I divorced my ex a little over 9 years ago after 14 years of marriage. I won't go into the specifics as to why, but suffice to say, he was a lying, cheating jerk. Early on during the marriage, I tended to not be all that assertive until I finally had my fill and grew a backbone. He hated that. He didn't like hearing the word no from me or in doing things my own way. So fast forward to a month after we were officially divorced, he was in his new place and I was in my house, formerly the house we shared, with our sons. But he still had a ton of his stuff there. Stuff I didn't want, even though I paid for a lot of it, but stuff I knew he really wanted. He finally reached out and demanded, not asked, demanded I send him his stuff. Just toss it all in boxes and send it over to him, his exact words. Mind you, he was only about 10 miles away from me at that point and could have easily come over to do it himself. He didn't want to do that because he'd have to see me, something he was actively trying not to do. Now, a lot of what he had were collectibles. No details, but some of it was fairly expensive and fragile, so I did as he asked. Correction, demanded. I tossed it all into numerous boxes. Now, some of the truly expensive items, I did take great care in packing them, only because I knew my sons would probably eventually want them. But for the stuff I knew my ex really wanted and care a lot about, I just tossed it all in a box without a care in the world. Now, I did inspect everything, and while I just dumped them in boxes, nothing was damaged by me. I also took pictures of it to prove it. So once I closed them all up, I told him to either get his butt over to pick it up or get someone to do it for him. He got someone to do it. Now, I was not at the house when this person picked everything up, but my sons and sister were. They didn't know how everything was packed. They only showed him the boxes. They told me that the person who picked up the boxes quite literally just tossed them in the back of his pickup without a care in the world and then sped away. Later that night, I got a call from my ex who started calling me a B-word for destroying all his stuff. I told him that everything was fine before I closed the boxes up and had proof of it. I then said that maybe next time be a bit nicer to me when making requests, and reminded him that he demanded that I toss it all in boxes, but he didn't tell me to be gentle in doing so. I hung up on him and proceeded to enjoy my celebratory glass of wine that evening, hoping that he was enjoying the shattered remains. If he'd bothered to go over and get his own stuff, this wouldn't have happened. Nor did he even tell this person what was in the boxes and to be gentle. And our second story. Don't respect my schedule? Okay. This happened a few days ago at my work. I work as a monitor in a company that sells wholesale. We have rotating schedules, so if we have activities outside of work, we have to notify them in advance so they can adjust our schedule. It turns out that this is not the first time that they've told me that I should give more notice, so a week or so before next week's schedules were made, I informed my leader about all my activities for the month. He clearly didn't like this, so he told me to send it to him in writing so he could remember and consider it for the schedules. Well, if it had happened like that, I wouldn't be here. I needed to rest on Sunday because that day I had baking classes, and to come in the morning on Tuesday, when I saw the schedules, I got angry. As always, she did what she wanted. She gave me my rest on Tuesday, and on Sunday, she left me in the afternoon from 2:30 to 11 p.m. My baking class was from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., so it was literally making me choose between my class and coming to work. I was upset because it wasn't the first time it had happened, and I always ended up trying to convince other classmates to change my schedule or break so I could do my activities. I was tired of always looking for solutions for the things she did wrong, and she also had the impudence to take her rest on Sunday. Here comes my malicious fulfillment. I decided to pretend that I never saw the schedules and missed Sunday. I hate uploading statuses to my WhatsApp, but I decided that this time it was a special situation, so I started uploading statuses from my baking class. When I saw that my leader saw my status, I knew that I had won. When it was 3 in the afternoon, my boss, my leader superior, asked me why I'd been absent. I told her that I had not seen the schedules and that since I did what the leader asked me to do, which was to notify her in time, and sending him my schedules in writing, I assumed that he had respected it. I knew that I was going to ask my leader, but I also knew that she had a reputation as a liar, so I knew that she would try to twist things in her favor. So I sent her a screenshot of the conversation in which I told her in detail about my activities. She thanked me and didn't say anything to me. The next day I found out that she was advised for that and I got away with it without any repercussions. Then she tried to justify herself to me by saying that my boss had not approved the schedule, but it's evident that's a lie. I know they're not going to pay me that day I was absent, but it was worth it to get her scolded, and let's see if she understands that if they don't respect my schedule, I'm just going to be absent, and I'm not going to try to fix their nonsense anymore. Edit. For those who are wondering what happened next, I didn't have any retaliation. That day I received a message from the manager of my area. She's above my leader. Wondering why I missed work, I told her that I didn't know that I should work because I'd already spoken with the leader, and I also told her that I had sent it to her in writing as she had requested, and I attached the evidence. The next day, I found out that the leader was reprimanded by my area manager for not paying attention to those details, and now my manager's in charge of talking to her whenever I need a specific time so that my free time is respected. I can't imagine not sending all requests in writing. Never just tell someone a change in schedule. Sounds like you did this the right way. And our next story. Most useless self-service cashier ever. About 4 years ago, I, male, was in the supermarket doing some shopping after work, wearing just a white t-shirt and some jeans. It wasn't that busy, so there was only one regular cash register open, with 2 or 3 people in line, and a set of like 6 self-scan registers. After collecting my basket full of groceries, I walked to the self-scan area and was finishing up scanning the last item in my basket, and had just finished putting it in my shopping bag, sitting next to the self-scan register, when Karen shows up. K. Don't you have a policy that if the line is longer than 2 people that you open additional registers? I'm wondering why she's complaining to me in the otherwise empty self-scan area, but decide to answer anyway? Me. There's nobody waiting at these registers, pointing around me, so I guess that doesn't apply? K. Well, I don't like to be kept waiting. Me. Okay. K. Aren't you going to scan my groceries, or do I have to do everything myself? I'm completely flabbergasted. Me. Huh? I don't... She steps up to the register and starts scanning the few items she had, effectively adding them to my tab, interrupting my response with, K. The youth nowadays is so lazy, and she goes off on a long rant about how the youth is useless. I'm in my 30s, and that customer service is worthless, and how she still has the ethics, and she was taught as a child to work hard and whatnot. I can't get a single word in. In the meantime, she finishes scanning her items and taps her way through the payment process without checking the final list of items on her receipt, nor checking the price, and pays the bill. Finally, she takes a breath, and I repeat what I was trying to say all along. Me. Look, I don't work here. K. No, indeed. You just stand here, costing the company money. I've never seen a more useless cashier. At that point, my groceries were paid for, by her, and I was tired of her condescension, so I just sarcastically said, thanks, and let her go on her way. If she really wants to pay for my groceries and insults me while I'm trying to warn her, I'm not going to stop her. I shop at the store regularly and checked with the customer service a few days later, but apparently Karen didn't complain about her bill being significantly higher than it should have been. The customer service girl found the entire thing quite funny and mentioned that this is one of the reasons they're called self-serve registers. She definitely served herself. Well, if Karen doesn't want to pay attention and pay for somebody else's shopping, then basically karma. And our last story. No, you can't use my property. I recently built a new house on a small acre of land in a quiet subdivision. The backyard borders a large retention pond, which takes up about a third of the lot. My wife and I were drawn to the spot because of all the wildlife, the ducks, beavers, deer, and even the occasional coyote that gather around the pond. We designed the house with huge windows facing the water so we could enjoy the view from anywhere inside. It was supposed to be our little slice of peace and tranquility. But there's one problem we didn't anticipate: the neighbors. A group of adults ranging from their mid-20s to 40s has been parking at the end of the street and using the pond to fish. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's a shared pond after all. But then it got worse. They're out there all the time, even at 1 a.m., yelling, drinking, and carrying on as if they were at a public park. They bring flashlights at night, casting shadows that reach right up to our house, and they don't even have the courtesy to stay near the pond. They come right up to the edge of our yard, staring directly into our living room while my wife is nursing our newborn. She's had to hide in dark corners of the house just to get some privacy. The final straw came one evening when we were eating dinner on the back porch. The group was back there again, shouting and laughing as if they owned the place. "This is ridiculous," my wife said, throwing down her fork. "Why do I have to hide in my own home because a bunch of strangers can't respect boundaries?" "I know," I sighed. "It's time to do something about this." So I texted the neighbors who own the other 2/3 of the pond and asked if they knew these guys. 2 of them agreed with me. They didn't like strangers fishing in their backyards either. The third didn't seem to care. With that majority, I decided to approach the group. One afternoon, I walked out to the pond where they were fishing and waved them down. "Hey guys, can I talk to you for a second?" They stared at me for a moment, clearly not happy about being interrupted. A guy, probably in his late 20s, looked me up and down. "Yeah," he said, leaning on his fishing rod. "Listen, I know you've been coming back here a lot, but this is actually part of our backyard," I said, keeping my tone polite. "My wife and I have a baby, and it's a little uncomfortable having people so close to the house, especially late at night. I'm just asking if you could find another spot." The guy narrowed his eyes. "It's a pond, man. It's public, isn't it?" "Actually, no," I replied. "This part of the land belongs to us. There's a 30-acre public park with a stocked pond not too far from here. You're welcome to fish there." He stared at me for a long second, clearly irritated, but eventually shrugged. "Whatever, man." The group packed up, but not before giving me a death glare. As they left, I figured that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Turns out this dude was the adult son of the neighbor across the street. He's probably around 25 or 30, and just to give you an idea of what kind of guy we're dealing with, he's got a bumper sticker on his car that reads, "I eat A on the first date." Funny, sure, but not exactly the kind of person you want glaring at you from across the street. From that point on, every time I saw him, I could tell he wasn't happy. One afternoon, I came home from work and noticed their cars parked near the pond again. They weren't fishing. They were just standing around staring at the house. My wife was inside feeding the baby, and I could see them from the window. I knew I had to take more action. "All right, that's it," I muttered to myself. That weekend, I decided to install a fence. I talked to a local contractor and had a simple but sturdy fence built along the property line around the pond. It wasn't an eyesore, but it clearly marked where my land ended and the pond began. I also put up a few private property signs just in case anyone didn't get the hint. The following week, the same guy showed up with his friends. When they saw the fence, I could hear them cussing from across the yard. "Hey," the ringleader yelled, leaning on the fence. "What the hell is this? You think you can just put up a fence?" "It's my property," I called back, standing firm. "You can still fish at the public pond in the park." He glared at me for a moment and then stormed off with his friends, cursing under his breath. But they haven't been back since. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.